The
Hey,
intro
hey,
is done.
hey.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello. Hello, Imran. Welcome to AWS On Air. Today, we're going to have you here talking about some wonderful things. But before you talk about those wonderful things, thank you. Thank you. Tell us about yourself, who you are, what do you do, and where do you join us from?
Thank you, Darko. It's a pleasure to be here and talk with all of you and share the wonderful story that we have with AWS Panorama. But before we get into that, my name is Imran Moin. I am the head of product management for AWS Panorama product, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit more about that.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Where did you say you're joining us from? I kind of skipped my. Where are you based out of?
I am based out of San Francisco Bay Area.
Of course,
So we have.
we're close by, Imran. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just looking at the comments. We have folks from all over the world. That is
It's
fantastic.
wonderful. Wonderful.
DC, Ecuador, or Nevada. It's amazing. It's amazing that we can
Yeah,
bring all of these folks together on a single live stream. I
exactly.
just blows my
So
mind every single time. Welcome, Imran. So excited to learn about the new stuff today.
exactly.
Thank you,
Okay.
Shashank.
So Imran, before we start to talk about AWS Panorama, tell us what challenges, what problems are you trying to solve with AWS Panorama? Tell the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Darko, one of the things that we have seen over the last several years is that uh, IP cameras are everywhere, right? Whether you talk about the consumer use cases or whether you talk about in the enterprise use case, there are close to about 200 million IP cameras that are installed in enterprise environments all over the world. And these cameras are generating thousands of petabytes of data every single day. And this data is just growing massively. The sad part about that, though, is only 2% of that data is ever analyzed by a human, right? Which basically means we have a gold mine of data and business insights that are just locked up in these camera streams that nobody is extracting, right? And so what we heard from customers is that they want to be able to leverage the data and the business insights that are inside these camera streams so that they can take meaningful actions on those insights and then improve their business processes. So that's basically the problem statement, and that's where we decided to build a product that can address these customer use cases.
But
So
2 million cameras, first of all.
yeah.
Wow.
200
200 million.
200 million,
That's a lot.
Wow,
close enough.
that's a lot of cameras. So Imran, actually, for some of us who are not very camera inclined, what is an IP camera? How's it different from my cell phone camera or a webcam camera that I'm using? Like, how are these different when it's used in an industrial setting versus a consumer setting?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shashank. The simplest way to think about this is it's basically the underlying protocol that the
Mm-hmm.
cameras use to connect back to the network, right? So of course, when you're on your cell phone, the cameras are leveraging your 3G, 4G, 5G,
Mm-hmm.
LTE connections. But when you are in an enterprise setting, these cameras are connected to the network using a hard Ethernet cable, right? So it's a
Right.
hardwire Ethernet RJ45 cables that you connect to your local router or switch. And
Mm-hmm.
most cameras nowadays are IP enabled, right? So that's what we're referring to.
Awesome.
So
So
yeah, directly connected to the internet versus having sort of a intermediate computer and like what we do with our consumer cameras, right?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome.
so tell us, what is this thing we call AWS Panorama? What does it actually do? Who is it for?
Yeah, great question, Darko. So AWS Panorama is a machine learning appliance and a software development kit that allows organizations to bring computer vision to existing on-premises cameras at their physical locations. The benefit of doing that is it helps customers make predictions locally with high accuracy and low latency.
Okay.
And very excited, earlier this week, we actually announced the general availability of the AWS Panorama appliance. So
Yay!
it's out there in the market.
Yeah. Uh,
It's been a while. I remember it was announced last year at reInvent.
yeah.
I believe Shashank, you were one of the persons
Yeah.
who was doing this stuff.
That's
Who
right.
was
Interesting
announcing it?
story, Imran. I did the live stream for reInvent last year when we actually announced it, and it is so exciting. Full circle for me. We're announcing GA now, and yeah, this is exciting, and I want to see more. I want to use it myself, but I want to hear more from you too
That's right.
about what.
We announced the preview of AWS Panorama
Right,
last year at last reInvent.
right.
We had tremendous response to our preview program. We had lots of customers and partners that we worked very closely with, refined the product, understood the use cases and the industries where we can go and solve some real problems. And now we're ready to take this broadly as part of the GA.
Fantastic.
Excellent. So you mentioned this is an appliance and an SDK, right? So for computer vision, maybe we can explain to the audience here what do you mean by when you say computer vision, right? It sounds very futuristic. It sounds very cyberpunky. But what is actually when you say computer vision?
Yeah, totally. So, going back to what I said earlier about, IP cameras that are generating a bunch of data, right? So if you think about it, that data is basically getting wasted, right? I mean, at best, there are some humans sitting in some central surveillance room watching the video feeds or whatever, right? But like I said earlier, 98% of the data that comes from these cameras is not getting analyzed and it's literally getting wasted. So,
Mm,
so that's where the field of computer vision was born, right? So if you think about it, computer vision is the process of capturing real world images and videos and extracting meaningful data or meaningful insights out of it.
Okay.
That's basically what it is, right? So products that provide computer vision, what they do is they connect to cameras on one side, they ingest all these camera feeds, and then they have your computer vision applications and machine learning models that run on top of it to provide inferences that can then be used to automate further use cases downstream.
Exactly.
and
So
for
and you
a lot
mentioned
of us who think of computer vision, for some of us who are familiar, we think of like object detection and image recognition and like segmentation and those sorts of things, right? Those are all things that you could be doing in live, which we don't do today, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, right? I mean, if you look at use cases and verticals, right? We have customers that are spanning many industries using Panorama to address a variety of computer vision enabled use cases. We have customers in retail, we have customers in manufacturing, we have customers in quick service restaurants, we have
Mm.
customers in transportation, etc. Wide variety of use cases. Happy to get into the details of
yeah.
each one of them.
I would
Awesome.
really like to see like a really practical. I'm sure you mentioned here we have a bunch of customers that do this. What kind of customers? What kind of use case have you seen people using AWS Panorama?
Yeah, great question, Darko. Let me give you some examples. So let's start with the retail industry. So we have retail customers such as Phillips 66 and
Mm,
Parkland that are planning to deploy computer vision applications at their stores for customer analytics. What they are looking to do is they want to perform automated heat mapping and dwell time analysis of customers that visit their stores, right? And
mm,
the reason they are interested in this is because this helps them optimize their store layout, right? So they want to put,
mm,
products that are higher margins in places where more customers go in their stores, right? And
mm.
then the other big benefit of this is this helps them plan staffing levels. So they know what time of day they have more customers in their stores and so on and so forth, right? If you go over to
Right.
manufacturing, we have customers such as Tyson Foods that are using computer vision for counting chicken nuggets in their factories, right? I mean, talk about some amazing use cases. Like my kids get a kick out of this one when I tell them that my product is actually getting used to count chicken nuggets. And what Tyson Foods told us is that this helps them speed up their factory processes, right? Let me share one more example with you. If you look over to transportation industry, we have
Okay.
customers such as Cincinnati Airport, who is using computer vision to identify vehicles that have been loitering for too long and alert
Mm.
security personnel, right?
Right.
This helps them optimize airport operations. The last example I'll give you is another transportation customer, Port of Vancouver, where we
Okay.
partnered with Deloitte, one of our partners, to apply computer vision. Their use case is that they want to optimize ground operations and expedite container inspections, right? So all these containers that are coming into their port, they want to effectively track the movement and then optimize their operations. All of this is powered by computer vision at the edge using AWS Panorama.
Okay,
My
so
favorite use case, of course, is food and cameras. I want a camera in my fridge that'll count the number of ice cream tubs of beer left. And
correct.
but jokes aside, with customers, what is the scale of cameras? Is it like
Yeah.
few or hundreds, or what is sort of the customer use cases that you've seen, or this is likely better applicable for beneficial for?
Yeah, totally. So, Shashank, what I can tell you is that, we have customers that have thousands of cameras that are
Wow.
already installed in their manufacturing facilities, or, their manufacturing plants, or in the retail use cases, right? Some of the customers I spoke about, they have hundreds of locations worldwide, and each store could have, 5 to 10 cameras, right? So the
These are
the number of
existing setups, right? Existing setups.
these are existing cameras, and actually that's a great
Wow.
point. One of our design principles with AWS Panorama was
Mm-hmm.
that we wanted to make sure this can interoperate and integrate with existing
Existing.
cameras, right? Unlike many other solutions in the market, we
Mm,
don't require customers to rip and replace their entire camera infrastructure. So
right.
this is literally just plug and play.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's great because you have the ability to reach out to more people. More people can actually use this product instead of making something proprietary that they need to
Mm,
rebuy or reinvest into cameras as well.
That's
Um,
right.
Before we continue, there are actually a couple of great questions coming in from the chat, and I want to address this as well. So we have a question from MJB Galaxy. With heat mapping, Panorama could detect body temperatures that are elevated or depressed. I don't think this is what you refer by heat mapping, right? Maybe you can explain what heat mapping means when you say that Panorama can help with heat mapping.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for that question. Please keep these questions coming.
Yes.
So when we say heat mapping, what we're basically referring to is identifying what are the areas in the store where a lot of customers are going, right? So if you look at the overall heat map, you can see areas that have heavy density of customers, right? So in a retail example, you can figure out what aisles are most people going to and what aisles
mm,
are not enough customers going to, right? So as a store manager for that retail operation, you can then decide to place your products in aisles and in shelves that get a lot of foot traffic, right? So that's
mm.
basically an example of heat mapping.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? So it's not about the body temperatures; it's about the actual visual input, how many people are there, and I think that's a great, yeah, choke points. Yeah, so this is MJB Galaxy. Basically, choke points of high traffic in a store could be a hotspot of just like a lot
It's a
of
hotspot.
activity. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's basically density monitoring, if I were to put it that way, right? You can tell what the
Interesting.
density looks like across different parts of the store.
Excellent, excellent, cool. Now, I have to comment on the chicken nuggets, right? So I'm always happy when I receive more chicken nuggets in my meal. So I hope that Amazon AWS Panorama or services like this would at least be lenient if they chuck in a chicken nugget or two more inside. So excellent. So you mentioned a lot of these great use cases, and I always like hearing about how customers get to be, kind of like inventive with technologies in this. Now, Shashank mentioned this to me, so maybe you can confirm is this the case or not? You say this is an appliance. Is this a hardware thing?
Yeah, that's a great
Ooh.
question. Yes, it is a hardware thing. When you buy AWS Panorama, what you're getting is an appliance that is provided by AWS. It's a powerful edge computing device that relies on NVIDIA's GPU processor that's
Mm,
built into the appliance. It's also a fully managed appliance, so AWS
Hmm.
nice.
manages it, right, and abstracts away all of the complexities at the infrastructure layer in terms of deploying and managing that device. Looking ahead, we're also working with a few select OEM partners, such as Lenovo, for example,
Mm.
where we will have these partners bring out Panorama appliances, right? So it'll be the hardware that they provide that's going to run the Panorama software stack on top of that. So over
Mm.
time, our customers can expect a few different choices when it comes to Panorama hardware.
Imran, so if I understand this correctly, so this device is what the IP cameras connect to, right? In the deployment setting. So all the IP cameras connect to this device, and this device talks to um, the AWS services, right? And that's first question. And uh, how many cameras connect to them, or how many of these do you need?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shashank. So that's exactly right. We ship out appliances to customer locations, right? So you
Mhm.
deploy this Panorama appliance, which is like a half rack unit appliance, and you
Mm.
deploy it physically on premises in your locations close to where the cameras are. You connect the cameras via the network, right? I mean, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
have to be physically connected to Panorama, but as long
Yeah.
as you have network connectivity to
Mhm.
the camera,
Mhm.
Panorama can ingest the video feeds from those cameras.
Nice.
On the other side, the Panorama appliance needs connectivity back out to the internet and back out to the AWS cloud, because
Mhm.
this is a managed experience, right? So we want to make sure the appliance is constantly communicating with the AWS cloud,
Mm.
and that's how you get the entire solution working. The cloud and the appliance are in constant communication. We have a secure machine learning pipeline
Mm.
that's constantly at play, and that is how you can securely deploy your computer vision applications and new machine learning models to run on top of your appliance.
Nice. And how many cameras can a device support, or is it based on the model or the type of
Yeah.
frame rate or something like that?
That's right. So the short answer is, I mean, it really depends on the use case and
Okay.
the frames per second and things like that. But a
Mhm.
rough rule of thumb is one Panorama appliance to about 10 IP cameras. That's what we
Nice.
would
Okay.
recommend. But obviously, we want to dive more into the specific use cases and
Yeah, if
requirements.
it's real time and all that, right? If you really want
Yeah,
like real time versus whatever the use case is, that's very
that's right.
interesting. Um, uh,
And
so you
there's a
mentioned another thing. Sorry, you had a question, Darko?
no, no. I just want to make sure that kind of in line of this. MJB Galaxy again has a question about faster versus slower panorama devices. Are there different types of devices, or is it just like a single hardware device,
Mm,
or can we expect more powerful ones, right, based
it's a
on
good
more
question.
NVIDIA GPUs and etc.
That's a great question. I love these questions, by the way. So MJB Galaxy, please keep them coming.
Ooh.
The so I'll give you the answer now, but then I'll also share with you from a product roadmap and a strategy point of view where we are headed in future, right? So at the moment, there is one appliance which has a very powerful NVIDIA Xavier GPU that you
Nice.
can leverage to run, a lot of your sophisticated computer vision models on AWS Panorama. But
Hmm.
over time, what we, in terms of our strategy, what we want to do is we want to work with edge computing hardware providers such as
Mm,
Lenovo that are really experts in building edge servers and edge computing
mm,
devices, right? And so we already have. We announced this partnership with Lenovo, and there's a few others in the mix at the moment. Where over time you can expect a number of different choices available to you when it comes to Panorama hardware. So depending on your use case, you might
Yeah.
decide like, hey, I don't need a
mm.
really powerful GPU. Like I'm okay with like even a CPU based Panorama
Mm.
appliance, for example. It is significantly cheaper, and so on and so forth, right? So over time, you'll have a choice of different Panorama hardware.
And is there like this is also a good question again coming from Europe and especially Eastern Europe. We have a question here from Victor. Victor is from Kenya. He mentioned that is this device geographically limited to a specific area, or can Victor here get it in Kenya as well?
Yeah. So, we are aggressively working on rolling this device out to a number of different countries worldwide.
Okay.
Obviously, for each of the country, we have to go through, the certification and compliance guidelines and so on and so
Mm.
forth. So, at the moment, this is not available in Kenya, but I would love
Hmm.
to hear more about that specific use case and see if we need to prioritize that country, from our roadmap point of view. I mean, right
Okay.
now it's available in variety of different countries all around the world, and we're aggressively looking to add additional countries.
Excellent. Excellent. So keep those questions coming right away. Chat. We love your questions. We want to be able to sure we want to make sure to answer everything that we can here. So feel free to keep them coming in. As you can see, this is a very tangible, interesting thing we like to talk about, and computer vision and especially machine learning is quite important.
Yeah,
Which
this is
brings
your hotline opportunity to the product
exactly,
experts, right? You won't get this opportunity again. You have to ask these questions now.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and like this kind of brings us to a point of machine learning, and we had a bunch of questions here regarding machine learning. How does this, what kind of machine learning use cases do you see here? How does that actually work? Are the models trained on the exact device, or are the models just running on the device? Take us through a machine learning journey here.
So Darko, I just want to
Hmm.
expand on that, right? So Imran, I want to switch hats and put on this developer hat or a data
Okay.
scientist hat, right? What does the whole experience looks like? You mentioned SDK, you
Yeah.
mentioned a console experience, you mentioned a device, right? And you mentioned the cameras, right? So there are these few different pieces. But if a developer was to get started, what is the flow? Like, do they start at the console and then train, or what does the flow look like?
Great questions. Great questions. So there were two different questions. Let me answer both of them one by one, right? So from a machine learning and computer vision expertise point of view, let me just say one thing. In order to get the Panorama solution working end to end, there is really three main skills that you need as a customer. The first one is data science, right? Which is where machine learning and computer vision, a lot of that sort of stuff comes in. So you need data science expertise. Second, you need expertise to build computer vision applications that can leverage these models, right? So
Mhm.
application development is a fundamental skill. And then the third key skill that you need as a customer is networking and network security. Why is that important? Because these Panorama devices or appliances would be going in
Yes.
production environment, right? Where you
Right.
might have some strict firewall rules, or the network connectivity might be very different, and so on and so forth, right? So these are the three big skills. Now, some of our customers already have all three of these skills in-house, which is great, right? And we
Mhm.
want to empower those customers, and we'll work with them to get the solution going. But what we're finding out is that a vast majority of customers don't have all these skills, especially the data
Mm.
science skills, right? I mean,
Hmm.
the
Right.
field of computer vision is very, very nascent, right? I mean, as an industry, we are really early on
Mm.
in this journey, and many of our customers told us that they just don't have the expertise in house. And
Yeah.
so this is why what we did is we, over the last several months, we invested in building an ecosystem of Panorama certified partners that can provide a
Ooh.
comprehensive solution
Mm.
across the entire edge CV value chain, right? So to
Nice.
name a few of our partners, we have partners such as Deloitte, Accenture, Pilot AI, Tensor IoT, BigMate, TaskWatch, and a number of others that have ready-made computer vision applications and models that
Mm.
work on AWS Panorama. So you can literally take those models and build an application around it, or even take the ready-made application and use it for Panorama, right? The third thing you can do in terms of machine learning models is we have actually published a number of open source machine learning models that are available on GitHub. So you
Yeah.
can just take those sample models from
This is flow.
AWS Panorama
Yeah.
as a starting point, and
Nice.
then go from there, right? So
Yeah.
variety of different choices available to you.
Nice. So
And
you
this.
have this DIY, bring your own model, train your own model, or use the samples that you provide as a starting point, or leverage a full solution from some of those partners. So you have it caters to pretty much any customer with any level of expertise.
That's right.
Excellent.
That's our intent. Yeah.
Darko? Yeah.
No, I just want to make a comment on this. Well, actually, Emmanuel wants to make a comment on this, or a question. Computer vision's applications or models come with this device. I guess you have some predefined content already available for people. How can they get started? It's not just a black box of things. You show them how these things should be worked with, right?
Yeah, totally. So let me walk you through, if you're interested in this and if you have specific use cases around computer vision, how can you get started as a customer?
Yeah.
So the first
Yeah.
thing is, we encourage you to engage with your AWS account team or one of our certified partners to discuss your computer vision specific use case,
Hmm.
and really make sure this is the right solution for your use case, right? That's step number one. Step number two is buy the Panorama device, right? It is available today for purchase through AWS Elemental, so you
Hmm.
can just purchase from there. We are going to be launching it via Amazon.com very, very soon, literally in a matter of a few days. So you'll have a choice of places to buy the device from. The next thing we want you to do is, we want you to engage with one of our many partners to leverage one of their existing computer vision applications that can solve your very specific use case, right? Or you can even have them develop a custom application that's tailored around your specific use case, right?
Mm.
If you have all the expertise in house that I described earlier, then great. We will work with you to develop your own applications and your own models, leveraging
Right.
the Panorama's application SDK. Once you do that, you do a proof of concept, you make sure everything is working end to end. Next step, we recommend deploying in 2 to 5 sort of production locations. Do you do like a little bit of a production pilot and make sure everything is working fine? You're getting the business value that you expect out of this solution, and then you scale to dozens and hundreds of locations if that's what you want to do.
Right. Cool, excellent. Now,
Yeah.
I just want to bring a couple of more questions from the audience because I think we have a lot of cool ones. Again, from Emmanuel.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of different types of cameras out there, right? Emmanuel's questions is, does this device support all kinds of cameras? Near infrared, long wave, mid wave, short wave. So cameras that produce images that are potentially, of a different kind. Does this work with those kinds of cameras?
Yeah, so the Panorama appliance basically interoperates with any camera that is IP enabled. So as long
Yeah.
as the cameras have the ability to communicate over IP protocol, Panorama can talk to those cameras and ingest the feed. The way it actually works is if you build on top of IP, there is a protocol called RTSP, which is a very
RTSP.
well-known streaming media protocol. So Panorama uses RTSP to actually stream the video frames directly from the cameras. And most of the IP cameras that are available out there, they support RTSP today, and that's how you can interact.
Nice.
Awesome.
I have a question. You mentioned, working with the AWS team to get access. And in my past life, I used to work with hardware. And usually, if a developer, an individual, right, say I'm an individual developer and I want to get started, there's a development kit that you get, that you test, you make sure your algorithms work before you deploy, because you said the ones you get are actually rack mounted and installed. But is there a developer kit that we offer so that developers can get started, or is it the appliance that you directly get into like a deployment setting?
Excellent question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Shashank, and I'm so glad you asked that. Right. So the very first thing you have to do with Panorama is you want to make sure that the computer vision application you build works on AWS Panorama. Right. So
Mhm.
we have two things. Customers can do there. One, the appliance has an SDK that runs on top of that. Right. Application SDK. So the way our customers use that is they build their computer vision applications, that they containerize it. So our application
Nice.
environment, support containers, right? So as long as your computer vision application is containerized, you can deploy it on top of Panorama. The other thing we require is that the machine learning model that you might use underneath it, we want to make sure that that machine learning model is compatible with SageMaker Neo as a runtime engine. So as long as the machine learning models that you have used are compatible with SageMaker Neo and you can containerize your application, it can work on the device. If you don't have the device, we also provide you this virtual simulator environment. It's called Panorama Test Utility, where even if you don't have the hardware, you can actually build application and test against this test utility to make sure it works on AWS Panorama. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible for our developer personas.
That's nice.
That is
I
wonderful to
want to
hear.
take a step back and unwrap a few things you mentioned. You mentioned SageMaker, you mentioned Neo, right? Containerizing. So for some of you folks listening in, if you're not familiar with this, SageMaker is our service, which you probably heard of for model development, but also deployment, where you can train models. There are built-in algorithms, also like bring your own frameworks, code, and train. But Neo is something you may not be familiar. It is a compilation service, so you can compile the models that you generate from training to make it target specific. So they can target, in this case, the Panorama appliance, right? But Neo supports multiple targets. But basically, you have to go through this training step with SageMaker, go through this compilation step with SageMaker Neo, and choose. So Imran, I imagine you choose Panorama as your target, and then the model is ready to run on Panorama. Is that the developer experience there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The way it works is you train your models. We recommend training them in cloud because it's much better to train
Yeah.
models in cloud. And then once your model is ready, you build an application leveraging these models. And then the next thing we have done is that through the AWS Panorama console, we've made it super easy for our customers to deploy these applications to one or more Panorama devices. So the customer
Nice.
experience is really seamless. Like just by clicking in a few places in the AWS console, you can
Uh-huh.
then deploy these applications and models to all the Panorama devices that are out there in the field.
Nice.
We talk about here, this is all about networking and IP cameras. And would you need to like create dedicated separate network for these cameras, or how that work? How would that work?
Another very good question, Darko. So the way Panorama works, and again, this goes back to our product design principle. We wanted to work in as many existing customer environments as possible and not require customers to rip and
Okay.
replace either cameras or their networking infrastructure or what have you, right? So the simple answer here is from a networking and network security standpoint, we will leverage whatever existing network connections customers have at their manufacturing plant or retail store, right?
Okay.
Even if they have, as long as they have a network connection where the Panorama appliance can talk back to the AWS cloud, that's all
Yeah.
we need. Now, it could be over a dedicated, DS3 or a T1 connection, or some customers have only just a broadband connection, no problem. And then some of our sort of bigger manufacturing customers have a private layer two connectivity between their location and AWS cloud
Yeah.
using a service called AWS Direct Connect. So if customers have that, then Panorama can write that secure private connection and talk back to the cloud. Regardless, one of the things we do is we encrypt every single packet that is in transit between the appliance and the
Yeah.
cloud. So we take
Okay.
security very, very
Nice.
seriously over here. So everything is encrypted using HTTPS and TLS connections.
Got it. And this is a question also from Jason Winkler. Jason Winkler is on chat. He asks, how do you secure the data flowing from the camera to AWS Panorama? Like, is that data also using HTTPS, or how does that actually work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So between the camera and the appliance, we are working on making sure that that connection is encrypted via TLS as well. But
Okay.
as folks might be familiar with, a number of existing cameras, especially the ones that are old and outdated, they
Yeah.
don't support TLS, right? So because we only control one end of it, we rely on the camera to support that encryption, right? So as more camera manufacturers and more cameras support TLS, we can encrypt that connection as well. But between the camera appliance and the cloud, everything is encrypted 100%
Yeah.
of the time, right? Every communication channel, whether it's control plane or data plane, everything is encrypted.
Very important. Very important. You get a lot of visual data going out there, so I think it's super important that we protect it all for you. Um,
Yep.
there's been a bunch of questions here around like cashierless stores, or like is the inspiration coming from Amazon Go, the stores which are like completely weird in my opinion, but uh, is this a potential use case for something like that, which with a lot of different cameras and sensors and all that things? Do you see Panorama being part of that?
Yeah, totally. So Amazon Go does leverage computer vision at the edge. It's
Hmm.
not Panorama solution just yet,
Okay.
and we're having conversations to see how we can make that happen. But yeah,
Right.
that's a great use case, right? I mean, retail is a very interesting vertical where there are lots of use cases for doing computer vision at the edge.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Absolutely. Good. Good.
So
uh
I have
Go,
a
Shashank. Yeah.
question, a little more ML related right now. So we can deploy models to this device, but if there's a setting where you don't have great connection back to the cloud, so the models run locally on device. But is there a model as in, is there a deployment framework wherein you can have some algorithms run on device, some on the cloud, or a combination? Is that like a recommended deployment approach, or is it supposed to be just on device analytics?
Yeah. So if you look at from an architectural standpoint, what we
Uh-huh.
recommend customers do is we want a lot of the machine learning training to happen wherever the customers prefer. It just so
Uh-huh.
happens that most of our customers prefer to do the training part in the cloud,
Right.
right? So you
Uh-huh.
train your
Yeah.
models in the cloud,
Right.
and then using the Panorama console, you deploy it securely to your appliances, right?
Mm-hmm.
One or more appliances. Once things are in production, the actual inference results from these machine learning models, that all happens locally on the device, on the appliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, that's the whole value proposition of
Right.
Panorama. That's the whole value proposition of doing computer vision at the edge. If you could do
Exactly.
this in the cloud, you wouldn't need computer vision at the edge. And there are lots of use cases, by the way, where computer vision in the cloud is actually a better fit for that
Mhm.
use case, right? And in which we actually
But
recommend
latency is
customers do
not,
it in the cloud.
you don't have
Yeah,
that
there's
much of a latency sensitivity or something like that, right?
that's right. Latency is a big reason, right? One of our manufacturing customers is using computer vision to monitor the conveyor belt and see if a product is defective. And if a product is defective,
Yeah.
they want to immediately, send a signal and stop the conveyor belt so somebody can go and remove the
Mm,
defective product, right? This is a
mm,
use case where, to your point, Shashank, latency is
mhm.
super important. You want real-time inference results. You don't have the
Right.
time to stream all the camera images back to the cloud, the
Cloud
models to
process
run in the
it,
cloud, and
send
the
it
results
back.
to come back, right? So latency is super important. Compliance and data privacy is another
Yeah.
big reason, right? We have
Mm.
lots of
It's
customers that
all
are in regulated industries. They don't want to send their camera feeds outside of
mm,
their physical location. So that's the second reason. And the third reason is the what we talked about earlier, which is the network bandwidth. Either
mm,
customers find it super expensive to keep streaming every camera stream back to the cloud, or in some remote locations where a lot of our manufacturing facilities are, they just don't have the networking infrastructure to get high bandwidth network circuit, right? So there are a
mm,
variety of reasons, for which you want to do machine learning, inferencing, and computer vision at the edge. And so
mhm.
AWS Panorama is targeted for those use cases.
So one of the common machine learning use cases to improve the models over time, right? So the results that you infer on device, that is something you could export back into the cloud and go through this whole closed loop system of improving the model and redeploying. So that part is enabled by the console, the Panorama console, where you want to maybe import just the inference results, not all the images. What's a workflow like that, like for a developer who wants to do this?
Yeah,
Model improvement over time.
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the good news here is that we actually leave it up to our developer and customers' discretion,
Mm,
right? Because they control the application, they control what they can do with the inference results, right? So if
mm,
they want to feed the inference results to some other system that's locally in their same facility
mm,
or plant, that's great. They can do that. A lot of our customers want to send the inference results back into the cloud because that's how they trigger
mm,
the subsequent workflows, right? So you
right.
can do that. So it all depends on the use case, right? You can
Mm,
decide what to do with those inference results. When it comes to the model tuning, as folks might be familiar with, right?
mm,
Machine learning models, the accuracy sometimes goes down over time, right? In the
right.
in the machine learning world, we call it the model
Drift.
drift,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so what you want to do is you want to periodically come back and to retrain those models, right? And so even in this space, it's the same thing. Periodically you want to retrain those models. If you're doing it in the cloud, you do that, and then you redeploy the new models and new applications back to your Panorama appliance through the AWS Panorama console, right? So the whole end-to-end workflow is pretty seamless.
Right.
Uh,
And
I
some of you folks may be not familiar with this whole drift detection and all that. I mean, think of it this way, right? When you train a model, you have a data set, and over time, that data set that you train the model with looks different. Maybe a reference is your chicken nugget sizes have gotten bigger. I don't know. Like, I'm just
yeah,
making an
exactly,
example,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So you trained it with chicken nugget, which is this size, and over time the model learns to recognize that once you train, but over time the nugget size have gotten bigger, so the accuracy will go down because the model
That's
doesn't
right.
know what the new chicken nugget size is, right? So at that point you want to trigger a retraining of the model, which means you
yeah,
have got to collect all the predictions from the previous and update your training set. So that diverse that's called the drift
right.
between the actual accuracy and the predicted one, just because your data domain has changed. And this is so common in so many domains because data is not going to remain the same over time, and you gotta like do the whole retraining.
That's
And
spot
and
on.
and,
Yep.
and here's a suggestion to our
I love
audience.
food analogies, right?
Yeah, but like I
Brilliant
had
example.
an actual real life use case yesterday for something like this. So anybody in the audience here had to wait in a line at a border crossing? Not sure if you live anywhere near a border crossing or you cross the border with a car a lot. Yesterday I was traveling from a different country back to my country, and I had like four border crossings to pick. I wasn't sure which one to pick because I didn't know which one was the busiest one. So
uh,
AWS Panorama here with connected cameras could do some machine learning magic to count the cars and say, Darko, go to that one. That's the fastest one right now. So
Yeah, we
here's a
actually
free idea for all of you.
that's a great use case, right? So this is a perfect use case for computer vision. We have some retail and quick serve restaurant customers that are using AWS Panorama to monitor the queue length for their drive-through, for example,
Yeah,
right? And see how
wonderful.
long is an average car waiting, before they are served.
Exactly. I think that's just a wonderful use case, and I've been watching like these like border crossing or drive-through cameras or like toll booth cameras to just to see where it's busy, but it's not. I would rather have a number saying like only 6 cars in this one or more than busy and those things. So wonderful use cases. Hey, developers, get to it, please.
Yeah.
I want my border crossing numbers. um,
There's a
so
question on the chat, Darko. Maybe you want to put on screen. And I'm surprised it didn't come a little sooner. So the question is like difference between IoT Greengrass and Panorama.
yes,
Both are
from LinkedIn
IoT
user.
related, but they're similar but different. So Imran, what's your quick differentiation thing there between the two services?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really like that question as well. So if you think about it, right, if you want to put together a solution like the classic DIY approach, you can buy an edge computing device, you can deploy IoT Greengrass on top of that, and then you can kind of manage that whole thing on your own. We have had some customers do this, and for if they have the expertise in house and the staffing levels to actually support the end-to-end solution, that's actually a good way
Mm.
they can get going. But for a wide variety of our customers, what they basically said is that, look, I don't want to deal with the underlying, infrastructure complexity, right? Because in order to do that, you still have to figure out the whole machine learning pipeline. You have to figure out, how you're going to push the security updates. You got to figure out how you're going to do versioning across a number of different devices. You have to figure out how you're going to do fleet management if you have hundreds and dozens of, these devices deployed out there.
Mm.
Security is very top of mind. The model drift use case you talked about, Shashank, earlier, right? Like if you have new models and new applications, so how do you seamlessly
Right.
deploy this on a periodic basis, right? So there's a lot of these kind of complexities that you have to deal with, and as long as the customers are aware that they this is the case and they want to do it, that's great. The big value proposition for Panorama is that it abstracts away all these complexities
Yeah,
Mm.
from the customers, right? So they can then focus on their business problems and make sure that they're putting their precious engineering resources to innovate on that front.
Right, right. I don't know if it's a good analogy. Tell me, Darko, if it's not. It's like launching an EC2 instance and installing your own database server and running it versus using
yeah,
DynamoDB, right?
yeah, yeah,
You're
Yeah.
trading off some amount of like flexibility and control for like ease of use and focusing on your problem statement. But at the same time, there are some customers who want to run and manage their own thing. So it kind of caters to both
exactly.
ends of the spectrum.
As
Yeah,
we like to say, the undifferentiated heavy lifting
Exactly.
is removed here. Um,
that's the term. Yeah.
exactly. So I think as a developer, I would like to see a demo right now. So
Right.
we're gonna bring in Amit in a second to show us some wonderful demos. But before we do, I need to switch over our wonderful ASL interpreters. So Meadow, welcome. Genesis, thank you very much. Bye. And also, I need to show something. Um, we are going to post a survey in the chat. Please do let us know if we do this good or not. Please let us know how can we make this better. If you fill the survey, first 50 people will get $10 in AWS credits. So please do that. We always like to hear from our audience just to make sure if we're on the right track. So any little helps.
Yeah, if you want more
Um,
food analogy, we can do
yeah, if
more.
you want more food, chicken nuggets analogies, we can do it all day.
I know.
So okay, with that, let's actually bring in Amit. Let me find my clickables here. So Amit, hello Amit, welcome.
Hi. Hi,
Hey,
Darko.
Um,
Hey, Shashank and Imran. How's going on?
um, good. Amit,
Thank
fantastic.
you.
please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what do you do, and where do you join us from?
Thank you. So I'm a machine learning solutions architect with AWS. I'm based out of Dallas, and my specialty more on building complex computer vision at the edge kind of an applications, and especially focus more on the panorama.
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to bring up your screen right now, and
Yeah.
do tell us, or Imran, or whoever's going to tell us what you're going to be demoing to us today,
Yeah.
because Uh, Computer vision demos are always fun. So, but do tell us what are we going to be looking at today?
Sounds good. All right, cool. Hey, Amit, thank you so much for joining us. So, this is one of those demos that's just kind of hard to do over video, especially when everyone is kind of remote. But we're
Right.
gonna still give it a shot because it's so much more impactful when you can see what it actually looks like. If it doesn't work, it's my fault. If it works, please give all the credit to Amit. He's the brains behind the demo. Okay, so before we get into the details of the actual demo, let me actually describe to you a real world problem that we have heard from our customers in the retail industry. I know we're talking a lot about retail because that's an important vertical, right? So, you know, one of the big pain points we have heard from store managers of big retail stores is that they don't know when the inventory of a particular product runs out on the store shelves, right? The only way for them to know about this is by routinely inspecting every single shelf in the store. Now, as you can imagine, this is obviously time consuming and very resource intensive. Not to mention that there is a real business impact of that, right? Where customers cannot find their favorite product to purchase, they leave dissatisfied, and it also results in potential loss of revenue, right? So that's
Yeah.
basically the problem statement. So with that, let me show you how computer vision and AWS Panorama can help these store managers with this exact use case where they might be running low on inventory. Okay. Now let's shift towards the demo. Let me explain to you what you're seeing on your screen here. So here we see 6 water bottles that are displayed out there. Imagine that this is a shelf in a big retail store, right? And we want to monitor as a store manager. I want to monitor the inventory. Okay. So right now there are 6 bottles, and as a store manager, I want to get alerted every time the number of bottles on the shelf goes down to less than 2. Okay.
Okay.
The way this is going to happen is we have a camera that is pointing at these 6 water bottles. So in a retail environment, you would have cameras pointing at these shelves, and then that camera feed is going to an AWS Panorama appliance that is locally right next to that camera. Okay.
Okay.
Hope the setup is pretty clear. So now let's get going on the actual demo. So I'm a store manager. Right now I have 6 bottles on the shelf. Everything is great. The threshold is set to 2. And we have also built the application such that if it goes below 2, I'm going to get an alert. So
Right.
we're going to get alerted by email. So Amit, if you can click on the email and show everyone that there are no notifications, everything is great. This is the happy state. Okay.
Good.
Now it's morning, 8 o'clock. The store opens, and then customers start coming into the store and they start buying water bottles. So let's say by noon, 2 of the water bottles have been bought.
Okay, let me
Right.
take that.
This is real time, folks. By the way, Amit is actually going and taking the bottles in. I used to work in a retail store. I was stacking the shelves, so this would have been very useful for me back in the day. So a couple of comments here in the questions is like,
Yeah,
this would be many more cameras in a store, wouldn't it? Or mounted cameras. We're implying here that you have fixed cameras, fixed vision on the shelves. So it would probably not be this direct, but somehow from above. But yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yep. And we can give recommendations on camera placements and things like that. But at
yeah,
the end of the day, you can see what this computer vision model is doing is it's watching the shelf and it's doing object detection, right? So it's detecting the bottles and then it's drawing the bounding box around it. So that's where we know within the picture where exactly is the bottle, and then we're counting how many are there on the screen, right? So, anyways, continuing with the demo, it's noon. Customers bought 2 water bottles. Now we have 4 left. 4 is still higher than the threshold I have set for 2. So that's
okay,
why you saw there are no alerts, right? So if you want to, Amit, if you want to go to the email, so as a store manager, I did not get any notification. So life is still good. Okay. Let's just say this is a really hot day. Lots of customers are
yeah.
coming into the store to buy water bottles, right? So now let's say it's like
I'll
4
take one.
p.m. and 3 more water bottles are sold.
Okay, let me take that. Give me a second.
We're sorry, Amit. I'm sorry. We make you go. Yonut's asking here. So cool. Is this an expensive and special camera? My understanding is this is just a basic IP camera, nothing special. It just provides a video feed through IP through the network to AWS Panorama. Okay.
That's right. I mean, I personally tested this with really $30-$40 cameras you can buy off of Amazon. So yeah,
Right.
any IP camera would work. Okay. Anyway, so let's continue with the demo. It's 4 p.m. 3 more water bottles get sold. Now I only have 1 bottle left. And as a store manager, I want to know when the number of bottles go less than 2, right? So at this point, I want to get notified. So let's go over to the email. And you can see I got the out of stock notification, right? Amit, if you can increase your font on that so people can read.
Sure. Sorry.
Yeah, so here you can see as a store manager, I got an email which basically says, hey, out of stock notification, there's only 1 bottle left in shelf number 23. You need to refill as soon as possible, right? So, and by the way, email is just an example. You can get an SMS, you can get notifications through Slack or whatever your workflow might be, right? The important thing is I don't have to go monitor every single shelf every so often as a store manager, and I get proactive notifications so I can then go back and refill the inventory, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's basically a basic use case, incredibly powerful. I mean, as a store manager, I make sure that I don't lose out on potential revenue opportunities. And then more importantly, I want to make sure my customer satisfaction remains high, right? Because customers can always find the product they want. So that's basically the demo.
And we have a couple of questions here. Maybe Shashank can also comment on this as a machine learning expert here. People saying like, "Oh, water bottle is easy," or you're saying shelf. I guess you can train a machine learning model to detect specific things, right? If I say like, what will make me not look like an alcoholic here? I have a bottle of wine next to me. Box of chocolates, yes. You can train it to detect a specific box of chocolates, right? And then alert on that as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I was looking at that question to Darko when you brought it up because, there are models that you can get off the shelf that will do this, right? There are models that's pre-trained that can detect bottles and people and stuff like that. What if you have this special chocolate that only Darko has, right? You get it in, this special store and you can't recognize. But that's when the whole DIY approach comes into picture, right? You fine tune a model in SageMaker with new data that shows that object, and then of course at that point you want to have some level of machine learning experience or expertise. But I think, Imran, you also mentioned there are solution providers that we've partnered with who may be able to do that for you as well, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, the model is only as good as the data you train it on, right? At the end of the day, you can't take a model that detects water bottles and try to use it for your chocolate, for example, right? So, but the way you pointed out, Shashank, I mean, either customers can go train the model themselves on the actual data, or really take advantage of the partner network that we have built specifically around computer vision. So if you go to our website, aws.amazon.com/panorama, you'll see there is a section for our partners that have some of these ready-made models or applications. And even if they don't, they'll work with you to build a custom model that works for your use case.
That is just fantastic. I think that's.
I'll do a call out. Some of you may be thinking this is highly intimidating to train, fine-tune a machine learning model for object detection, image classification. But I'll do a call out to SageMaker built-in algorithms. They've tried to make it as easy as possible. If you go check out you just need to provide your new data, and a lot of it is automated. Of course, having that level of machine learning experience helps to understand the model performance and such, but rather than you go on your own and try to do this on your own using TensorFlow, just check out the SageMaker built-in algorithms. It really simplifies fine-tuning these models for maybe you have a special chocolate that you want to detect or something else.
Right. So we have a question here from Majar. I think it's a great comment from him. He also says, first of all, great demo. How do you cater to background noise? I'm sorry, Amit, we're covering you right now, but how do you cater for background noise? Just train your model accordingly to the background or the expectations. And what do you use for notifications in this case, SNS or something else?
That's right. Amit, actually, do you want to answer the question around SNS?
Yeah, sure, I can do that one. So especially for this case, we have been used SES, simple email service, but it can also be done with the SNS. The reason we thought just for the SNS, there are some, the message comes on the bottom that if you don't want to get the emails, you can unscribe the link. We don't want that pop-up to be back again. That's the reason we use SNS, but it can work absolutely with the SNS as well.
That's
Okay.
right. And then on the background noise question, yeah, so it all depends on the actual models you're using, and then within the specific
Right.
model, there is also there's some pre-processing and there's post-processing, so that you can really focus on the object that you're interested in and not the sort of the background around it. So without going into too much sort
Right.
of detail on that side, this is something we encounter all the time, and we can work with you on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think a lot of great questions are coming in. People really did enjoy the demo. So
Thank you.
people ask, can you run this on a Raspberry Pi? To be honest, I'm not sure if this is can you run this on any edge computing device, or is this a specific hardware thing?
Yeah, so AWS Panorama comes with the hardware and
Exactly.
Right.
that you use to deploy it. Our hope, like I said earlier, over time is to give you a choice of number of different edge computing platforms where you can run AWS Panorama.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Um, this is a question also being
Hmm.
asked twice by James.
Right.
Sorry for repeating it, but I didn't see my other comment. Can you train this to find the same products located on different shelves? Example, the website says store has X amount of products in the store. I visit the store, not on the shelf, what expected. This is also a great use case, counting
So
actual physical stock. Um,
yeah, I mean, we have seen that, especially in the retail, the planogram compliance, which is really, really a huge topic, right? I mean, if you
Hmm.
have the product and one brand and you're putting in different brand in a subsequent places, it's a compliance issue. And that can happen. People like me can take one brand from a store and then put somewhere else, right? You
Hmm.
can definitely do that kind of a checking and say that, hey, you are taking some brand which is can lead in out of stock even eventually. So not to happen that kind of a scenario, you can use Panorama to detect that the product where it's been laid on, and you can put back to the same aisles again.
It,
excellent, excellent.
so it's so exciting to be seeing these specific questions because this is very interesting, right? Like special cases like products in different places or different objects. It basically shows that you can do all of these things with these tools, right? The appliance, the SDK, the integration with the console opens up doors. You can do all of these things. The where the specialization comes into picture is to fine tune, or not fine tune, like specifically build a solution for your requirements, is where the model development happens and the type of model, the type of
Right,
data. But I think the broader step back view of this is the solution will support all of these, right? The hardware,
exactly.
the integration with SageMaker, and that will support all these cases. It's just how you choose the right models, how you train the right models. That is where each of your use cases is going to differ.
Absolutely.
Yep,
And
that's right.
I'm a fan of this because it's so flexible, right? We
Right,
get all these
exactly.
questions. Can it do this and can it do that? The
Yes,
answer is always
yes.
yes.
How much,
Depend exactly how much
how
time
much
you invest.
effort, or how much, what path you want to go. You want to go to the
Yeah,
partner solution route, do it yourself. That's where it's going to
exactly,
differ. But answer is yes usually, I think, for all of these questions.
exactly.
And most importantly, you need to have a right set of data to train the models. I mean, that's the important
Of
of
course,
anything you do with the
ML
machine
data.
learning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I have a
Um,
very important feedback since you're
go
wrapping up the demo. This is very important, Amir and Amit. I think you should update it with chicken nuggets
Yeah, that's
chicken
right.
nugget demo, please.
now.
Next time, chicken
Yeah,
nugget
just
demo.
kidding,
We
but the
cannot be.
bottle demo is fantastic.
The amazing thing about this space is that I am amazed every single day to hear the different use cases customers have. Right? We had the other customer the other day. They want to use this in an industrial environment, and they wanna monitor the wood making process in their factories. Right? I mean, it's just fascinating what customers are looking to do with computer vision. And personally, I'm just so excited to see what customers do on top of this platform.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I'm a person who likes all the little gadgets and sensors and all those things, but sometimes implementing different types of sensors to detect things is very complicated. Sometimes just a simple computer vision can solve a lot of things with a properly trained machine learning model. So this can kind of replace a lot of the stuff there. So I really love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
one quick thing, Darko. I don't want to put Amit, Amir, Imran on you on spot, but is there a? We spoke about device. We haven't seen it. Do you have a picture
yeah,
or something that we can see? Because we spoke about the device
Yeah,
so much, and
I
yeah.
have
maybe
the
on the
device.
website or something.
Let me bring it. I have in my just side. I can just pull it and
Please,
show it to you. Yeah, give me one
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
please.
It's not so
Well,
much trouble there.
Well,
Like
Amit is doing this. Maybe Imran, you can mention, do we have a publicly available cost of the device?
yeah, absolutely. So the device itself costs
Ooh,
$4,000. Oh, there you go.
Okay,
That's the actual device. Amit, you want to hold it up?
nice. Awesome.
It's a
I love to
it's a
nice.
see it.
really simple half a rack unit device.
Yeah.
If you look at the back, it's got two
Nice.
Ethernet ports for
Hmm.
redundancy. It's got an HDMI port. It's got a USB port. Pretty standard. It's IP62 certified, so you can deploy it in any
Very
rugged
rugged.
environment,
Yeah.
rugged environments if you like, or it also comes with rack mountable units, so you can mount it in a server rack if you so
Nice.
wish to.
And for people who are asking, like, if we can test this out privately, there is this test playground you mentioned, Imran, like where people can
Test
actually play
utility.
with the test utility, where you can actually play around with the features of this one. So before actually purchasing the actual device. So, but again, think about it. Can this solve a problem you're trying to solve, or maybe this is solving a problem you don't even know you have? So, but again,
Yeah.
computer vision is very powerful, especially with all the platforms like SageMaker, like all of the data
Right.
utilities we have on the cloud that can help you make this just perfect machine learning model for what you want. So, with that, I would like to kind of get some things here out to the audience. What should they do? Who can they reach out to? What should they go read? Is there a blog post we can point them to or whatnot? What's your call to action, basically?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to learn more about AWS Panorama, the easiest would be to visit our website. It is aws.amazon.com/panorama. I will drop
Okay.
that link in the chat here as well.
Yeah.
When you go there, there is a section for resources. You can read our blogs. You can read our technical blogs. Amit actually authored and wrote a very interesting use case blog. You can read the technical specs. You can see the list of partners that you can engage with for a variety of different use cases. You can see who are some of our publicly referenceable customers and what are their use cases and things like that. So that's where you can learn more. Engage with us or one of our partners if you want to discuss your specific use case. And then I hope you buy one or more of the devices and start playing with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So there are
Awesome.
still so many good questions in the chat. I know we can't get to everything. Imran, Amit, is there a way they can, reach out to you, or is there a official forum or a channel or something? There are a lot of questions here about, like fine tuning confidence of the model, and yeah, there's so many good questions still coming in. What's the
Yeah,
best way
absolutely.
to?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me personally is through Twitter. My Twitter handle is Imran Moin, one word. My first name, last name, no
Nice.
space or anything in between. So yeah, hit me up there, send me a message, tell me about your use case, tell me what you like about this, tell me what you don't like about it, what we need to improve. Any feedback would be super appreciated.
Exactly. Please do reach out to us. I think it's wonderful that we get to see your takes on this, your ideas, and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So good, good, excellent. Imran, Amit, thank you very much. I think this
Thank
is a
you.
wonderful discussion here. It was a wonderful demo, first of all. So everybody likes to see this very physical, and we got Amit to walk
I know
around
that's.
and kick off
I
bottles.
love hardware. I know Darko does too. It's nice to
Yeah.
see like actual hardware. And yeah,
I also want to give a thanks to our wonderful ASL interpreters, Genesis and Meadow. Thank you very much for all you're doing. And I would like to thank the audience who's coming here every week and asking the questions, posting those comments. We always like to see you here. So, um, with that being said, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will be seeing you next week at the same place at the same time. So it's 9 p.m. Central European time. I don't know. That's like noon PST.
yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you here every week at the same place at the same time. And yeah, thank you all once again.
Signing out.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.